Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Shergroup on the Sofa. I hope wherever you are today, you're in a good place and the sun is shining just a little bit in your part of the world. So today I'm delighted to introduce my guest, Gordon Cessford. Gordon and I, it's just been reminding me, we met in London and we have actually seen each other for 28 years. Yeah, so that's amazing. But we've kept in touch. And before we get into the interview, I just want to give a shout out to Share Group's #1 fan, Mr. Ross Saunders, who's in Norwich, England today. So, hey, Ross, hope you're in a good place. I think Gordon's just going to say hello to you.
Hey Ross, good to glad you're an avid watcher of the podcast. Sorry, I don't have a North American accent for you, but hey, I'm here in sunny Baltimore.
Yeah, you're in Baltimore today. Now, the last time that we sort of kind of messaged, you messaged me because you were watching my TV show called The Bailiffs, or our TV show, which was probably a bit of a surprise for you to see us on TV. But hey.
Absolutely. I kind of love these reality, as my wife has a go at me all the time, whether it's Border Force or your show. And I was kind of watching it and I thought, I know that person. Hang on a minute. No, it was really good to see. I haven't gone on to TV stardom over the last 28 years, Claire, but clearly you have. So well done.
Well, thank you for that. But of course, you are now. Tell us your designation, Gordon, because it's very impressive.
Well, I'm not sure it's it's okay. So I'm president and regional CEO of Atradius in North America. So yeah. US, Canada, and Mexico. Atradius, obviously, well-known credit insurance firm, #2 in the world. And I've kind of landed here in the US, but have spent a long time since we last met in London. I've lived and worked in Paris. I've worked in a global role. I've worked in Asia for 12 years, I think. And now here I am in North America. So a very interesting journey.
Yes, and of course, Atradius are gold sponsors for the World Credit Congress. So thank you so much to you and your company for your support. And we're going to get into our conversation today, which is around fraud, the increased fraud risk. And of course, we want to hear from Atradius and yourself as an expert on what that is looking like. So, I mean, international fraud schemes affecting businesses today. What do they look like, Gordon? What should we all be looking for?
Yeah, and again, just to be kind of set the scene a little bit, I think firstly, Atradius, obviously, we're in the world of credit insurance, information, debt collection business. We come across fraud. We're not insuring directly fraud or incidences of fraud. So just to kind of put that caveat there.
Yeah.
But obviously, yeah, we come across it on a regular basis. I think it's important to kind of look at what is fraud, what's it kind of defined as. And I think the Oxford English Dictionary, which is the go-to, is wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. So yeah. There we have it in a nutshell. I think fraud has been around for well, third century BC is the first recorded fraud. It was a bottomry insurance policy, so a ship policy which basically covers the hull and the cargo. And two Greek merchants, and I have to look here at the screen to remember their names, Hegastratos and Xenosthemis, easy for me to say, had this plan that they would take the ship out to sea, they'd sink it, and they'd claim on this so-called bottomry policy. Unfortunately, they got caught. One of them lost his life attempting to escape. The other one was captured and went through some fairly, I'm sure at that stage, rigorous law proceedings. Yeah. But that's basically, there you have an insurance fraud. Right. What does it look like? Honestly, Claire, I mean, it's crazy. And I kind of think back to my years in the corporate world, and also personally, and we have these opportunities to be defrauded all the time, whether it's email phishing, whether it's investment fraud, whether it's employee fraud, whether there's all sorts of elements of fraud. And it's almost as if during COVID, the perpetrators, if you like, of fraud have taken this time as a, let's kind of, find different ways, more intricate ways to defraud people and corporations, because we're seeing, more and more different, if you like, methodologies. Just to give you some numbers, though, I think it was the FBI that said last year there were more than 800,000 cybercrime reports in the US. That's reported incidences. So, and again, that in fraud, quite often this goes without being talked about, without being tracked. So these are reported to the FBI. So there almost has to be a certain kind of size of fraud. Federal Trade Commission released some data recently that showed that US consumers reported losing more than 10 billion in fraud. That's up 14% on 2022. It's a massive issue, massive issue. And trade, which is obviously where Tradius play, I think there's opportunities in trade because one, okay, there's domestic, but there's also international trade, and we can carry on the conversation about, the different ways, if you like, that fraud can be perpetrated. But for sure, it's a massive, massive issue and something that everyone needs to be aware of and try and prevent themselves from becoming, frankly, a victim, whether it's corporate or personal.
Well, of course, and the Congress is a global event, which is what makes it so unique. It's not wedded to any one particular company. It's a gathering of credit expertise across the world. So in terms of risk to credit management, what does a Tradius see? And you're so well placed for this. What does a Tradius see in those risks to credit management between the US, Europe, Asia, Australia? What do you see in that kind of spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I think the issues faced, whether it's in credit, in risk management, in fraud awareness, is pretty much the same the world over, right? And how we can protect ourselves against these issues, incidents, I think is the same the world over. The requirement for good, and again, the conference that we have in October is going to be fascinating for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. By the way, so thank you also for involving us and me personally. Good credit management procedures, right? Whether it's Asia, US, Europe, Africa, wherever it happens to be, the challenge remains. If I'm going to trade, I want to make sure that I'm going to be paid. So trade in the right markets, in line with local regulations, with the right customers. And it's not just about being paid, it's about having, good relationships where you can build that relationship, being paid on time and within, not always exactly on time, but within the sort of the accepted elements of variations to your payment terms. So it's a very, very dynamic, very fast moving. Companies and individuals need to stay informed, be ready to adapt. I would say, if you look at the economic situation across the world, and there are different macro and geopolitical issues which are affecting the ability to receive payment. For me, it's about awareness. Be aware of what's going on. Keep your ear to the ground, not just with your customer, your prospective customer, but also understand what's going on in the wider environment.
Sure. So in terms of what businesses should do, I mean, the world is shrinking, right? Globalization is here. international trade transactions, cross-border trade, gathering pace. I don't think that's ever going to go away. The genie's out of the bottle on that.
Yeah.
But where you've got volatile geopolitical situations, we can think of the Ukraine area, the Middle East area.
Yep.
What should businesses be doing to safeguard their international trade, the transactions they want to do? How can they continue to do those as safely as possible, do you think?
So a number of steps, Claire, that I personally and at Tradius obviously support, and very, very practical steps, because I think sometimes, and I'm not saying your podcast is guilty of this, by the way, but sometimes so-called experts come on and say, oh, you should do this and you should do that. Let's get really into the practicalities of this, which is one, do your research, make sure that you understand who it is that you're trading with, get the right, legal entity that you're trading with, make sure if you're doing it internationally that you're doing, the documentation is correct, is in line with local regulations. So do that kind of research and understand what it is. Secondly, diversify, whether it's your supply chain or whether it's upstream or downstream in the trade. Make sure that you're not putting everything in one basket. If you're only having a supplier in, I don't know, in Asia, let's say, or in the Middle East, what happens if that relationship goes wrong? What happens if they fall under sanctions? Understand all of these kind of intricacies, and it's not easy. We've all seen it, but just kind of plan and try to be agile and prepared. Build those kind of strategic alliances. So there is nothing, in my opinion, better than building that relationship where you can trust, where you actually see the whites of the eyes, if you like, where you meet, you understand what your supplier or your customer is going through. So understand that. And here's the sales pitch. Ultimately, if things go wrong, what do you want? You want an understanding that if you're not paid or if there's a political risk situation in the country, that there is an opportunity to mitigate that risk. Okay, it's not right for everyone, but I think having the expertise and the understanding of a third party, a trusted third party, is quite often a good thing. So as always, and I caveat this as always, awareness and kind of an open mind to understanding what is going on in the different areas that you're trading in, whether, as I say, whether you're buying, whether it's your suppliers overseas or even domestically, or whether it's customers, in different markets. Understand the scenario, understand the political, the geopolitical risks that you may be facing, and be open to different ways of working.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention identifying the correct legal entity, because you'd think that was almost a well-worn record, wouldn't you, really? And yet time and time again, in my day job, I see people falling over on this, even with all the information that's available publicly, and through systems such as what your company would provide, other companies provide. People still don't get the fundamentals right in terms of exactly who it is they're trading with. So I
think that there's the right legal entity, the correct legal entity. And let's be honest, if we're looking at fraud and potential frauds, the waters will be muddied by the perpetrator. So they'll always be trying to throw you in a different direction. So it's really important to stick to those really fundamental, those basic tenets of trade, which is understand who it is that you're doing business with. And it's quite often where we're tested or not able to pay or look at, review a claim, as an example. It's quite often around it's not the correct legal entity that they've been trading with, so the credit limit which they've requested is in a different name to the company that they've actually been delivering goods and services to. And
Yeah.
this is absolutely the basics, right? So
Yeah.
it gets more complex after that, of course.
And that's the same in any part of the world. It's not unique to a Tradius in the US or a Tradius
No,
in
it's the same the world over. And as I said right at the beginning, Claire, I worked in Asia for 14 years. It's it's the same the world over. Of course, you get it gets more complex when there are company names are not in the English, in Western language. If it's in local language, etc., you can get into all sorts of difficulties, and it's even more important there to make sure that you're in the right space.
Yeah, big need to use Google Translate and get at least a basic understanding of who you're trading with in any part of the world, in any language or any script.
Yeah.
So international fraud, I mean, domestic fraud is difficult enough. I can only imagine that international fraud just adds another dimension to the complexity of untangling the web. I mean, that's obviously something within the Tradius toolkit, right?
Yeah, and there are different ways, I guess, and probably fraudsters operating in the international markets. I'm not saying they're any more clever, because these people are very clever. They look for gaps or opportunities in the market, but certainly when you're dealing in overseas markets, it's a bit more complex. Let's just put it that way. So you've got jurisdictional fraud, regulatory and compliance fraud, financial systems, international payment systems. Some of these things have been very well, how should I say, very well kind of looked at, and the risk has been mitigated in a lot of scenarios. But even in the banking world, you still get fraud, right? Even in today's climate, there are still ways that the fraudsters can tap into email systems, tap into bank accounts, and perpetrate fraud. There are, of course, if you look at technology now, and the current buzz phrase of artificial intelligence will bring about a big step in trying to counteract fraud, but also fraudsters will be using artificial intelligence to perpetrate fraud. So you kind of get this ongoing thing, and again, awareness is absolutely key, of fighting these things. Couple of examples for you. You may order a certain quality of product from an overseas supplier. Product turns up and it's absolutely nothing to do with what you'd ordered. It may actually just be sand or something crazy like that. I mean, that's a very, very basic fraud, but it might be one that people have come across. False invoicing, payments being asking for payments to be made to a certain account, and it's not the account of the company that you should be paying. So there's all sorts of ways that fraudsters, companies, fraudsters are trying to get your money without giving you what it was that you're paying for.
Yeah, I think maybe. Well, I'd like to think that more and more of us are aware of this, and we have policies and procedures in our organisations to counter some of the sort of the missteps that we might make. For example, having the right account number, the right sort code, the right IBAN number, the ways that these have to get ticked off and signed off before money is transferred, and do you see an increase in policies and procedures countering these types of mistakes that then lead to fraud?
Yeah, I think two things on that, Claire. First of all, I mean, as you can imagine, an insurance company, we have oodles of processes and what have you. And even then, we still come across scenarios where we didn't quite think about that, or let's think about this going forward. So yes, processes are in place, and 9 times out of 10, they're absolutely robust and kind of meet the needs. But imagine, I don't know, we're paying a claim, okay? And in advance of settling a claim, we call the client, the policy holder, and we say, okay, we're about to settle this claim. Can you confirm these are the banking details? Yes, those are the banking details. Great. Then 20 minutes later, a call comes in. Oh, by the way, no, sorry, I know we said those were the right banking details. Actually, these are the banking details. Okay, change. That should be red flag, right? That should be alarm bells. Hang on a minute. Why are you changing the settlement details at this late stage, right? So again, processes are in place to make sure that we call them, talk to the principal that we've been dealing with. We've been advised that the payment details have changed. Can you just confirm? These are the kind of the steps and these are very, very basic steps. Let's face it, in any business scenario, when it's whether a corporate, a bank, an insurance company, or whatever, make sure, double check. And frankly, if anyone ever says, "Oh God, you're asking a lot of questions," I'd say, I'm doing this for your safety and security and your kind of, protection, if you like, than paying away. So, and again, as I say, fraudsters have become pretty, as we probably all experience personally. You get these phishing emails, asking you to reach out and can we have a conversation? Just look at the email address, and obviously corporates all have now, this is coming from outside of the organization, or an email address that is not known, these kind of checks and balances which are put in place. But quite often you may be tired, it might have been a long day, you might have just got back from vacation, there's all sorts of things that you go, you've got to be vigilant all the time. There are, because again, when you're not vigilant, that's when they're going to get through, and it may be costly.
I mean, actually, just in the last week, I've had 3 or 4 of those types of emails with, please can you confirm such and such, and you sort of look at it and you go, well, I don't know that person. Then you kind of look at the email address, and it's always a random set of characters and letters. It's never like Tradius.com, it's like a weird combination. So I do.
And again, it's just that awareness, Claire. It's we can put all the processes in place, but common sense also has to play a part in this, right? If you're opening your mobile phone and you're getting something from a parcel delivery company, let's say, saying we can't deliver, can you give us, we'll re-deliver, but give us your bank account details. No, I'm not giving you my bank account details. Try and deliver it again, and if I have to, whatever. But common sense prevails.
I'm glad you're talking about common sense, because that seems to be a rather old-fashioned value, but it's still very, very relevant. Regulatory compliance, anti-fraud laws, I mean, they must be all part of your day-to-day existence. How do they play a part in addressing international fraud? How does that even start to pull together into a strategy?
Yeah, I mean, having the right processes, having the right procedures in place at a corporate level is important, but that's adding on to what is already there from a regulatory, from a country level, from a global standard level, whether if that's in payments, etc. So having that identification at an early stage of what actually is a fraudulent activity and the consequences of that fraudulent activity, If there are robust laws, frameworks, regulations in place, then it builds that culture, if you like, of trust and acceptance. Anti-money laundering, we all go through it, right? Whether it's opening a bank account or if it's even transferring money to I have my son's now in Toronto, my daughter's in London. And from time to time, kids will be kids, and hey, Dad, can you transfer me some money? I need to do this or I need to do that. I keep thinking the shutter will come down on the bank of Dad, but no, every so often the hand comes up. Yeah, absolutely, and happy to do it. But even there, when you're transferring money, even within a family, there are fraud, anti-money laundering kind of things which go on. Why are you making this payment? So having that kind of framework, as I say, a robust regulatory framework is really, really important. And it's there, right? It's there, and it probably stops many frauds or attempted frauds from taking place because there is that robust framework. So authorities the world over, regulators the world over have done a great job in kind of moving forward, protecting consumers, protecting companies against fraud. But I go back to what I said earlier, which is COVID was a time of learning for fraudsters, because they probably couldn't do a lot of things because people weren't in offices, they were remote working, which opened up a whole new way for them to perpetrate fraud. Right? They saw this new opportunity, this new market that they could suddenly tap into, because they can almost play off the executive perhaps who's working from home, who used to be in an office with a process and a procedure. That's slightly different now, right? And they found ways to do it. So be aware, be vigilant.
Yeah, I think actually at the Congress we have a great product going to be talked about, which is called Collaboration Room AI, in which it turns the home office into a completely secure environment. Right. So I hope you'll get to meet those guys, and I think you'd be very interested in that particular product, because the genie's out of the bottle now on remote working. So even if you can get some of your workforce back to the office, I don't think the days of us all going back to the office are going to come back.
No, and it's an interesting one. I mean, not really on the topic of today's discussion, but I do, and again, I'm quite old school probably, and a bit old fashioned if I'm being brutally honest. But if you look at home working or remote working, we've gone to a 3-2, right? We've gone up to 3 days working from home, 2 days in the office, and that's pretty flexible. It works for us. We've got a great team here in North America and around the world that we can trust, that work really, really hard and are delivering, the service to our customers that Atradius stands out as being the number one kind of provider of customer service. So no questions there. What do you actually miss? You miss a little bit of communication. You miss a little bit of creativity, because you're not all sitting there, bouncing off each other. But for me, the element that you do miss, the other C, if you like, is collaboration, and that's the coffee machine chat. That's the, hey, by the way, did you? I had this call from a client asking me to change their bank details.
Yeah.
And that is where perhaps we're kind of missing a little bit by not having everyone around more often. But 2 days a week, honestly, I don't know what Shergroup. Obviously, you're out on the roads a lot more. You're out on the street doing your thing. But in the collections world, the issue has been, and Atradius has our own collections business, has been actually getting hold of people, because the days of calling an office and accounts payable and saying, hey, we'd like to try and collect this debt. How do you get hold of these people now? Because not everyone's instantly available.
Well, you'll be glad to know in England and Wales, at least, you still have to go and attend on a writ. You can't do it remotely. despite some attempts to try. So we're going to find you in your office or your home office or, you know, wherever. But no, the world has changed since COVID. And I was going to ask you about the regulatory compliance, because obviously you're in the US. Is this something that's working? I'm fascinated by the US system of government. I mean, is it something that is working at a federal level, or are you finding that different states have different regulatory compliance when it comes to fraud? Because obviously there's 50 of them.
Yeah, I mean, every state has its own rules and regs, right?
Yeah.
When we are filing wording, we have to file in 50 states. If we're changing our, you know, a model, we have to file it in 50 states.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are some states which are perhaps more into the, sorry, I'll use a US expression, into the weeds, into the detail. But you know, we have to be compliant across the land. And then in Canada, I think there are, you know, a number of provinces, in Mexico, etc. So we spend a lot of time and resource on legal and compliance. I mean, it's a growing department for us, and one where you never want to be tripped up, right? That's the key. You can go out and maybe win a customer, lose a customer, pay a claim, you know, take a loss, whatever it happens to be. But legal compliance is really where you want to make sure that you're absolutely on top of things.
Yes, it is. That is the living and building a business in the US is complex.
Very complex. Yeah, absolutely.
So perhaps you've got an inside track now. What are the emerging trends or evolving tactics that are being used by this fraudster community? Can you shine any light on what we should be looking for?
Well, I'll try. AI, as I mentioned earlier, I think is the kind of the buzzword. We always look at it as a positive, right? Artificial intelligence is a positive. It should be welcomed. We should open our arms to it. I would urge caution and say that, you know, it has its place, but it doesn't replace, right? So we're, and again, I'll share with you in our risk underwriting side of our business. So when we're granting credit limits to our customers, to our clients, quite often an individual is not making that decision. Quite often, for a low level, it may be an automated decision. It may be with information gathered through artificial intelligence, through, you know, web drag. It may be that there's a model that we built which will determine, so long as this and this are in place, then we're okay with this small amount.
Yeah,
that's the positive side, right? If I'm doing a presentation to a client and I need to understand their business, I can very quickly go into a generative AI model and say, presenting to this customer, give me some background as to, you know, and I'm sure you as I do. These are all the positives of artificial intelligence. But of course, there is the downside, is that we've got access to it, and so do people who want to do harm, whether it's financial or whatever. So AI-powered scams, I think you'll see more and more. Cybersecurity, cyber threats, massive growth in malware, in phishing, in all of these kind of electronic, faceless, if I can call them that, scams, Trojans, these kind of things. I mean, it's incredible. The numbers, I think malware attacks grew by 4,000%. 4,000% in 2023.
Yeah.
How do we counteract these things? I mean, it's so. And again, you know, it's faceless. You can't sort of point and go, oh, it's this person. No, these are just things that are going out. And 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we would joke about, oh, the Nigerian prince, or, you know, has asked me for my account details. Now, these kind of attacks, phishing attacks, malware attacks, etc., they're happening all of the time. And these numbers, Claire, are only the ones that are disclosed, because it's a little bit the iceberg, right? What you see above the surface is what is disclosed. What's going on underneath? Massive. Information disclosure, information fraud, a 322% surge in attacks on information. So that's your personal data, professional data, corporate data, etc. Again, massive. It's there's all sorts of things being worked on, and again, we're as businesses, as corporations, as individuals, we're never going to be free of this. This is going to be around for as I say, it started in 3 BC. In thousands of years, fraud is still going to be around, and we've just got to be cognizant of it, aware of it, and try and fight it at every stage. But it feels tiring at times. And again, I'm no absolute fraud expert, but we see plenty of examples of frauds trying, or fraudsters trying to perpetrate frauds. It's all over the world.
I know AI is a blessing and a curse, at the same time. And obviously the dark side of AI is what you're talking about. And we've seen that just recently in this most recent week with this huge outage where something has crept into a system and caused havoc. So I guess it's about staying 10 steps ahead of these perpetrators and trying to anticipate. And of course, both in the US and the UK, we have sophisticated systems to be able to try and do that. And no doubt every country is trying to build that kind of resistance to those kinds of situations. So it's we're very much all in it together, aren't we?
We are. And you're right. There are systems. There are software availabilities. There are insurances against fraud. There are all of these things. But it seems like a little bit of a battle at times. And certainly, if you're the victim of either a relation family who had a malware attack, and it cost them a lot of money because they had to pay the ransom, if you like, ransomware. They had to pay the amount, and you never know if you pay. Is it going to just happen?
No. I've seen a bit of that. Not had the experience myself, but I have seen it. But people just take steps to ring fence all your critical infrastructure. Even whatever size business you are, put your website on a secure server. Just don't have it out there with the hoi polloi, really, in the nicest possible way. I mean, so how many people actually work for Atradius North America? Just give me an idea of how many people in your team.
So in the US, Canada, Mexico, we've probably got 350 people.
Right.
All in, and that's across, as I say, across our collections, insurance, and information businesses here. Yeah.
So what are your systems like in terms of staying informed about the latest disruptions, that could impact international transactions, and then start an alarm bell ringing about some kind of major fraud or some kind of system failure? What does that look like in Atradius?
So it's on a number of levels. The first one I would suggest is that we've got around the world, we've got people on the ground, right? We've got experts in all the major markets who are looking at, not just fraud, obviously, but they're looking at trends, they're looking at payment information, they're looking at financial information. They're looking at what's going on in the local economies, and they're feeding that into to the system, so that we've got kind of a timely insight and timely updates on what's going on. So when the Russia-Ukraine situation happened, as an example, to give you a political event, geopolitical event, we were able to very quickly make some serious decisions about how do we deal with this, because obviously that then brought in some sanctions issues, that then brought in, you know, a number of things that we had to contend with, and so having people on the ground, having that, you know, real local information, timely information is really important. Then we're looking at all the other information that's available, news channels, update from financial institutions, updates from the IMF. These are all kind of, you know, feeding into our systems, and whether that's artificial intelligence or whether that's human influence. Then we're listening. So you've got kind of Atradius people, you've got the kind of the wider scope, and then you've got our customers. And our customers are very, very well informed. They are throughout an economy. So we've got, you know, through our global unit, you've got the very large multinational companies down to SMEs. And so we're listening to them. We're hearing their experience real time.
Yes.
And believe you me, if you're a small company and you've got a potential issue, they're going to tell us, right? Whether that's not just a fraud, but a non-payment issue, a delivery issue, a dispute with a customer, whatever it happens to be, they make it very well known very quickly that there is an issue. So all of these things, it's all about gaining that insight, which then allows us as an organization to make decisions to support our customers. So it's kind of different levels, different layers, if I can call it.
I get that.
But it's kind of interesting and kind of capturing all of that. So a database, which is secure, by the way, capturing all of that, and then making informed decisions on the back of that information is kind of what drives the business.
No, I it's good to hear you listening back to your customers, right? So I like that. So the process for adjusting credit limits and coverage when you've got these disruptions going on in market conditions, I mean, is that complex? How does that work in Atradius?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is complex, because, you know, you can't knee-jerk react to something. So depending on, you know, and again, you kind of look at the macro situation, and you can decide that, you know, something's going on which we need to be aware of, and then, but you then need to really dig down into the actual where the issues are likely to happen. We're about non-payment, right? We're about covering our clients against the risk of non-payment. If I look back at COVID, that was a massive kind of shock when we all went into lockdown, when we were all, you know, companies were not paying. Why not? Why weren't they paying? Because they didn't have access to systems. They were, you know, they hadn't managed to piece together. Some companies, you know, were, if you were in the leisure, cruise, restaurant, you know, there were obviously going to be a lot of failures in those sectors. So it was kind of, that was a pretty widespread shock, and those events are pretty well publicized. They're pretty obvious. I mentioned the Ukraine situation. That was pretty obvious. We knew that there would be some payment issues. We knew that there might be some sanction issues. And so we were well informed. We took some decisions, etc. But again, you can't just knee-jerk react to these things. You have to work through with your customers to make sure that we're aligned, okay, that we're going in the right direction, that they understand why we're making certain decisions, that hopefully they support those decisions, and that we get to an outcome which is acceptable for everyone. So those are kind of the instant ones, the kind of the obvious ones. Then you kind of look at market conditions. You kind of look at over the years, and again, we've all done it. The decline in the retail space of going along to a store and buying a good, whether it's a laptop or a mobile phone or new headphones or whatever it happens to be. That that bricks and mortar, if you like, retail is quite obviously declining, and we've got the rise of the online delivery and what have you. Those kind of trends are longer term. They're not instant. It's not an invasion here or a pandemic there. It's a very gradual thing. So again, we're monitoring those kind of events and trends as well. And it's all about working together with our clients to make sure that they're in the right position and are not losing out, if you like.
I want to ask you this question, and you may, I don't know if you'll have the answer for me, but I mean, the world was taken aback by the pandemic. Would you say you had any kind of run up to that in terms of anticipating that risk, or were you, just because you're in the nature of the business you're in, or were you like the rest of us, like, it was difficult?
Yeah, I mean, it was very difficult, and I'll tell you, it was a very real story. So I arrived here in the US on the 10th of October, I think, and took on this new role. I had a handover period through to 31st December with my predecessor.
Yeah.
On the 10th of March, I think, I signed for our new building, our new office here in Baltimore, and on the 16th of March, everything went remote. So
right.
Was I informed? Was I prepared? Absolutely not.
Okay.
But that's kind of, if you like, a flavor of how we operate, right? You have to be agile. You have to be have the ability to take information, make an informed decision, and move forward. And so, no one, Claire, was kind of thinking about full lockdowns. And to be honest, when I had immediately called a leadership team meeting, and we said, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to do? So we made sure everyone was IT ready. And again, I think all organizations have a huge vote of thanks to their IT colleagues to allow us all to continue to function in our workplace, right?
Quite right.
I mean, massive challenge. And we said, okay, is everyone ready? Yes, we're ready. And quickly we were able to continue, just going about our business. And actually, it was pretty much business as usual. We were still writing credit limits. We were still paying claims. We were still assessing risk. We were still signing new policies. And so it's kind of, there's a slight pause or hesitation, if I can call it that. And then you carry on and find the right way forward.
I think the word pivot took on a new meaning on or around the 20th of March, when we all pivoted into a remote working environment that we had never anticipated would happen. So
absolutely.
Good for you.
Yeah. And it was also quite fun, right? I know there was a lot of angst around about the pandemic itself and how serious it was, etc. But there was also some opportunity to do things in a very, very different way. And for me, that was kind of challenging, but also quite good fun to think about things in a different scope. So it was,
especially with you starting your new kind of role. You were probably the right man for the time.
I'm not sure, but talk about, you know, jumping into it. I mean, it was really.
I can't think you being parachuted in.
Sorry. Yeah,
parachuted in. To sort it all out.
No, it was definitely good fun, and trying to run an organization where, and I know you're the same, is I kind of like to, what I call, walk the floor, right? I like to go around and check in with people and see how people are, and, you know, any red flags, anything I need to be aware of. Not able to do that physically, you know, by walking the floor. So literally it was, you know, and my poor colleagues would probably see a Teams call coming from me and they think, oh God, what's gone wrong? But no, it was just genuinely me just checking in and, you know, how are things? Is everything okay?
That's good. Very good. Love to see that in leaders, that they want to hear from their people. Not everybody does that, you know. It's very good. So, I mean, how can businesses, this is really the summing up kind of point. How can businesses foster this culture of fraud awareness that you've been advocating today, and accountability amongst their great teams, their employees, in this international marketplace? I mean, how, you know, what, you got a couple of sound bites you can give people in terms of how to do that?
Yeah, I think very practically, as I always try to be, Claire, be aware, you know, give training, educate your teams on, you know, what to look out for, how to behave, how to act. Define, you know, almost have that kind of awareness built into your corporate culture. So, you know, everyone lives, breathes. You do your regular, and we do it every, I think, twice a year. We do fraud awareness training. We've got what we call an SIU, and I think every insurance company in the US will have one of these, a special investigative unit, which looks at any incidences either of fraud or near miss or potential fraud. And we share that, you know, they look at it, they understand that what happened, and then they share that back throughout the organization so that we can learn, right? That's how we learn and avoid. So have that almost built into your culture. Be transparent, and again, this goes beyond fraud and fraud awareness and what have you. But be transparent. Talk about these things, because if you sweep things away under the carpet, believe you me, it'll come back and bite. So awareness, culture, training, and education would be my main kind of elements.
Well, thank you very much. There's some really good practical nuggets in there. And I do hope that people, I know you're a very accessible person. So I hope if you're coming to Congress that you'll make time to go and say hello to Gordon, and you know, come and listen to his session about all of what he's been talking about today, and hear his insight on Atradius and how they're doing it, which I think is really important as well. And you've also got a booth at the Congress as well, so you'll be able to meet Atradius people along with Gordon. So if fraud is something that you're looking for, you know, market leaders, or you're looking for Atradius's type service, then Gordon's going to be fully accessible to you in Orlando, 14th to 16th October. So we look forward to seeing you then, Gordon. Thank you so much for today. It's a great way to introduce what you do, and just for people to hear you and see, you know, the kind of leader that you are. So you haven't disappointed me at all. I've been so pleased to interview you today. So for everyone that's interested in what Gordon's been talking about, you can catch up with him on LinkedIn as Gordon Cessford. You can also check out the groupatradius.com website. So a couple of resources there. They'll all be in the notes, show notes to this YouTube interview. For everyone else, of course, Shergroup is hosting the Congress in Orlando. We've taken up the challenge. We'd love to see as many of you as possible coming to Orlando to hear this fabulous range of speakers that we have set up. Gordon is one of a number, over 30 speakers that we have. all experts in their field, all dyed-in-the-wool credit professionals, wanting to share their experience and listen to you and really try and, if they can come up with a solution for you and your organization, then they'll be there on hand to talk to you. So check out shergroup.com and also check out the worldcreditcongress.com website, where you can find out all information about the Congress, how to get there, the Global Credit Awards and the event program. We look forward to seeing you in Orlando in October. Gordon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Claire.